The Fourth Wave by P.D. Ouspensky, Chapter 2. I would like you to revise in your memory what I said last time, because many of the things that I said were not fully developed. I only gave hints, a general idea of things that we have to study. So it's necessary to recall the order of things and their relative importance, because some things I said were essential for the understanding of further ideas, while some I brought in merely in explanation of other things. But first I'd like to stress again one important point. This system belongs to the class of systems which regard man as an incomplete being and study him from the point of view of his possible development. Ordinary psychology is very far from reality. The man it studies is an imaginary quantity. Man is not what he is supposed to be. We ascribe to ourselves many qualities we do not possess. We are not conscious. If we are not conscious, we cannot have unity, cannot have individuality, cannot have an ego or an I. All these things are invented by man to keep the illusion of consciousness. Man can be conscious, but at the present time he is not. It must be recognized that man lives below his legitimate level. There are also other things man may attain, but now I speak of what belongs to him by right, but what he does not have. This system turns everything we know or ever thought of upside down. It cannot be reconciled with ordinary psychological ideas. We have to decide how we are to see man, as an egg or as a bird. If we see him as an egg, we must not ascribe to him properties of a bird. When we see him as an egg, whole psychology becomes different. All human life becomes the life of embryos, of incomplete beings, and for some, the meaning of life becomes the possibility of passing to another state. It is very important to understand what is a complete being and what is an incomplete being, because if this is not understood from the beginning, it will be difficult to go further. Perhaps an example will help to illustrate what I mean. Let us compare a horse carriage with an aeroplane. An aeroplane has many possibilities that an ordinary carriage does not have, but at the same time an aeroplane can be used as an ordinary carriage. It would be very clumsy and inconvenient and very expensive, but you can attach 2 horses to it and travel in an airplane by road. Suppose the man who has this airplane does not know that it has an engine and can move by itself, and suppose he learns about the engine, then he can dispense with the horses and use it as a motor car. But it will still be too clumsy. Suppose that the man studies his machine and discovers that it can fly. Certainly it will have many advantages which he missed when he used the airplane as a carriage. This is what we're doing with ourselves. We use ourselves as a carriage when we could fly. But examples are one thing and facts are another. There is no need of allegories and analogies, for we can speak about actual facts if we begin to study consciousness in the right way. If we return for a moment to the analogy of an aeroplane, that is the reason why our aeroplane cannot fly? No, what is the reason? What is the reason why our aeroplane cannot fly? Naturally, the first reason is because we do not know the machine, how to work it, and how to put it in motion. And the second reason is that as a result of this ignorance, the machine works at a very low speed. The effect of this slow speed is much greater than if we compare a horse carriage and an airplane. To follow the ideas and methods of the system fully, it's necessary to recognize and to agree upon 2 points: the low level of consciousness and the practical absence of will and individuality in man. When these are accepted, it's very useful and necessary to learn the right use of 2 ideas, 2 words: useful and harmful, because it is rather difficult to apply these words to a psychological state and find what is useful in the psychological nature of man and what is harmful in it. But if you regard man from the point of view of his possible development, it becomes clear that what helps his development is useful and what hinders it is harmful. It's very strange that it's necessary even to explain this, but unfortunately our ordinary thought, particularly when it meets some serious problems, does not use this idea. However, we lose the understanding of what is useful and harmful. No, somehow we lose the understanding of what is useful and what is harmful. Our thought has acquired many bad habits, and one of them is thinking without purpose. Our thinking has become automatic. We are quite satisfied if we think of and develop possible side issues without having any idea why we're doing it. From the point of view of this system, such thinking is useless. All study, all thinking, and investigation must have one aim, one purpose in view, and this aim must be attaining consciousness. It is useful to study oneself. No, it is useless to study oneself without this purpose. There are reasons to study oneself only if one has already realized that one does not have the consciousness and one wishes to attain it. Let me read the sentence again. There are reasons to study oneself only if one has already realized that one does not have consciousness and one wishes to attain it. Otherwise, it becomes just futile. Attaining consciousness is connected with the gradual liberation from mechanicalness, for man as he is fully and completely under mechanical laws. For man as he is fully and completely under mechanical laws. The more a man attains consciousness, the more he leaves mechanicalness, which means he becomes more free from accidental mechanical laws. The first step in acquiring consciousness is the realization that we are not conscious. But this illusion cannot be changed alone, for there are many others. As I said earlier, the worst of them is the illusion that we can do. All our life is based on this illusion. We always think that we are doing, when in fact we're not doing anything. Everything happens. Another illusion is that we are awake. When we realize that we are asleep, we will see that all history is made by people who are asleep. Sleeping people fight, make laws. Sleeping people obey or disobey them. The worst of our illusions are the wrong ideas among which we live and which govern our lives. If we could change our attitude towards these wrong ideas and understand what they are, this in itself would be a great change and would immediately change other things. Now, it would be good if we start in this way. You have been thinking during the week, so try to remember what was not clear in what you have heard and ask questions, and then I will develop that line of thought. Question. And this question is again put by Ouspensky, and the answer comes from Gurdjieff. Question. If we are not conscious, are we able to judge what is useful for us and what is harmful? Answer. I said that self-observation cannot be impersonal, for we are personally interested in the right work of our machine. Right work of the organism is profitable for us. Wrong work is harmful. One must have a simple commercial attitude to one's life and inner functions, and one must know what is profit and what is loss. So one cannot observe oneself quite impartially, like some historical events that happened 1,000 years ago. When a man adopts this attitude to himself, he is already he is ready to begin practical self-study. For practical self-study means the study of the most mechanical things. Some functions in us can become conscious. Others can never become conscious. Instinctive functions, for instance, have no need to become conscious, but there are many others. Our whole life is filled with them, which it is very important to make conscious, or if one cannot become conscious, to stop or eliminate, for they are really harmful. They are not merely mechanical in the sense that they are automatic. They are due to the wrong work of the machine, which has gone on for a long time. So, they have already caused definite harm. Things have become broken or twisted or strained. Question. In trying to study myself, I can find nothing real, nothing tangible. Answer. Study what is there, whether it is real or unreal. You cannot study only what is real. You have to study what is there. It is not an obstacle to self-study if you find nothing real. You must study what you find. Actually, you're quite right that there is nothing real, but one must study oneself and study obstacles. The chief obstacle to the attainment of self-consciousness is that we think we have it. One will never get self-consciousness so long as one believes one has it. There are many other things we think we have, and because of this, we cannot have them. There is individuality or oneness. We think we are one, indivisible. We think we have will, or that if we do not have it always, we can have it, and other things. There are many aspects to this, for if we do not have one thing, we cannot have another. We think that we have these things, and this happens because we do not know the meaning of the words we use. There is a definite obstacle, a definite reason why we cannot have consciousness as we are. The chief obstacle in the way of development is lying. I have already mentioned lying, but we must speak more about it, for we do not know what lying means because we have never studied this question seriously. Yet, the psychology of lying is really the most important part of the human being. If a man could be described as a zoological type, he would be described as a lying animal. I shall leave out all external lying and take only a man's lying to himself, about himself. This is the reason we are in the state that we're in now, and why we cannot come to a better, a higher, a more powerful, more effective state of consciousness. According to the system that we are now studying, we cannot know truth, because truth can be reached only in objective consciousness. So we cannot define what truth is. But if we take it that lying is the opposite of truth, we can define lying. The most serious lying is when we know perfectly well that we did not and cannot know the truth about things, and yet never act accordingly. We always think and act as though we knew the truth. This is lying. When I know that I do not know something, and at the same time say I know, or act as though I knew, it is lying. For instance, we know nothing about ourselves, and we really know that we know nothing. Yet, we never recognize or admit the fact. We never confess it even to ourselves. We act and think and speak as though we knew who we are. This is the origin, the beginning of lying. When we understand this and follow this line, and when we try to connect this idea with everything we think, everything we say, everything we do, we will begin to remove the obstacles which lie on the way to consciousness. But the psychology of lying is much more difficult than we think, because there are many different kinds of lying and many very subtle forms, hard to discover in ourselves. In others, we see them comparatively easily, but not in ourselves. Question: if we do not know what truth is, how do we know when we lie? Answer: you know that you cannot know the truth, and if you say you do not know or can know it, it would be a lie, because no one can know the truth in the state in which we are. Do not think philosophically. Take it in relation to facts. People speak about everything as though they knew. If you ask a man whether there are people on the moon, he will have an opinion about it. And so with everything else. We have opinions about everything. And all these opinions are lying, particularly about ourselves. We do not know about states of consciousness, or the different functions, or the speed of functions, or the relation to one another. We do not know about how functions are divided. We know nothing, yet we think we know about ourselves. All we have is opinions, and they are all lies. Question: if all opinions are lies, should we avoid opinions? Answer: you must know their value. The first lie we tell ourselves is when we say I. It is a lie because in saying I, we presume certain things. We presume a certain unity and a certain power. If I say I today and I say I tomorrow, it's supposed to be the same I, when in reality there's no connection between them. We are in the present state because of certain obstacles or certain facts in ourselves. And the most important fact that we do not understand is that we have no right to say I, for it will be a lie. When you begin to observe yourself, you will see that it really is so. There are I's in you which do not know one another and never come into contact. For instance, begin to study your likes and dislikes, and you will see that you can like one thing one moment, and you can like another thing another moment, and the two are so opposed to one another that you will realize at once that those eyes never meet. If you observe your decision, you will see that one eye decides and another has to carry out the decision, and this one is either unwilling to do it or never heard about it. If you find one thing one does not lie to oneself about, you will be very exceptional. Being surrounded by these lies, born and educated in these lies, we cannot be any different from what we are. We are just the result, the product of this lying. Question: if I try to find truth and find it impossible, should I not have to separate myself from the everyday world? Answer: you would then study an artificial being, not a real one. You can study yourself only in the conditions in which you are, because you are the result of these conditions. You cannot study yourself apart from your conditions. Question: isn't there anything common to all eyes? Answer: only one thing, that they are mechanical. To be mechanical means to depend on external circumstances. Question: from what you said, it seems very difficult to study oneself without lying to oneself. Answer: no, lying must stop. You must remember the principle. Lies can only produce lies. Only when you know the chief types of lying will you be able, I do not say to struggle with them, but to observe them. Struggle comes later. Many things are necessary in order to struggle with something in ourselves. For a long time we can only study. When we know the general arrangement, classification of things in ourselves, only then does the possibility come of struggling with something, such as we are, we cannot change anything because man is a very well-balanced machine, balanced in the sense that one thing conditions another. Things look disconnected, but in actual fact they are connected because each thing is balanced by many other things. Question: would you mind expounding on what you mean by machine? Machines cannot have potentialities. They cannot have a hope of getting consciousness. Answer: analogies cannot be complete because they cannot be carried on indefinitely. This, too, is a limitation of our mind, or if you like, a limitation of our consciousness. So the comparison with a machine cannot be carried on in every direction, but man is a machine in a quite real, quite a definite sense. He cannot produce any action from himself. He is only a transmitting station, nothing more, and such as he is a machine. And as such, he is a machine. If a man could have an idea or could do something without external causes acting for him, then he would not be a machine, or would not be completely a machine. As he is completely a machine, particularly in the state of consciousness in which we are, and the fact that we believe ourselves to be in quite a different state makes us even more mechanical. Our machine is not even working rightly. So if a man wants to create favorable conditions for the possibility of inner growth, which is in him, he must first become a normal machine, because as he is not a normal machine. When we hear about mechanicalness, we often think that, although man is a machine, not all his functions are equally mechanical, nor are all human activities equally mechanical. Everybody finds something that he thinks less mechanical according to his views or tastes. In reality, all human activities are equally mechanical. There is no difference from this point of view between scrubbing floors and writing poetry. Generally speaking, it must be understood that a complete reevaluation of all values from the point of view of their usefulness is necessary. Without reevaluation, we can never move from the point at which we are. We have many wrong values. We have to be brave and start on this reevaluation. Question: I understand that we have to create an I out of nothing. What creates I? Answer: first, self-knowledge. There is a very good Eastern allegory which deals with the creation of I. Man is compared to a house full of servants, without master or steward to look after them. So, the servants do what they like. None of them does his own work. The house is in a complete state of chaos because all the servants try to do someone else's work which they are not competent to do. The cook works in the stables, the coachman in the kitchen, and so on. The only possibility for things to improve is if a certain number of servants decide to elect one of themselves as a deputy steward, and in this way make him control the other servants. He can only do one thing. He puts each servant where he belongs, and so they begin to do their right work. When this is done, there is the possibility of the real steward coming in to replace the deputy steward and to prepare the house for the master. We do not know what the real steward means or what the real master means, but we can take it that the house full of servants and the possibility of a deputy steward describes our situation. This allegory helps us to understand the beginning of the possibility of creating a permanent I. From the point of view of self-study and the work to attain one I, we must understand the process by which we may come from this plurality to oneness. It is a complicated process and has different stages. Between the present state of plurality of eyes and the controlling eye we wish to attain, there are certain stages of development which must be studied. But first, we must understand that there are certain formations in us without knowing which, we cannot understand how we eventually come from our present state to this state of one eye, if it is possible for us. You see, although a great many of our eyes are disconnected, we do not even know one another. They are divided into certain groups. This does not mean they are divided consciously. They are divided by circumstances of life. These groups of eyes manifest themselves as roles that a man plays in his life. Everybody has a certain number of roles. One corresponds to a set of conditions, another to another, and so on. Man himself seldom notices these differences. For instance, he has one role for his work, another for his home, yet another among friends, another if he is interested in the sport, and so on. These roles are easier to observe in other people than in oneself. People are often so different in different conditions that these roles become quite obvious and well defined, but sometimes they are better hidden or even played only inside without any external manifestation. All people, whether they know it or not, whether they wish it or not, have certain roles which they play. This acting is unconscious. If it could be conscious, it would be quite different, but one never notices how one passes from one role to another. If one notices it, one persuades oneself that one is doing it on purpose, that it is a conscious action. In reality, the change is always controlled by circumstances. It cannot be controlled by the man himself, because he himself does not exist yet. Sometimes there are definite contradictions between one and another role. In one role, one says one thing, has a certain definite view and convictions. Then one passes into another role and has absolutely different convictions and says absolutely different things without noticing it, or else thinking that one does it on purpose. There are very definite cases which prevent man from seeing the difference between one role or mask and another. These causes are certain artificial formations called buffers. Buffer is a very good name for these applications. Buffer is a very good name for these appliances. Buffers between railroad carriages prevent clashing, diminish the shock. It is the same with buffers between different roles and different groups of eyes or personalities. People can live with different personalities without them clashing, and if these personalities have no external manifestation, they exist internally all the same. It is very useful to try to find what the buffers are. Try to find how one lies to oneself with the help of buffers. Suppose one says, "I never argue." Then, if one really has a good conviction that one never argues, one can argue as much as one likes and never notice it. This is the result of a buffer. If one has a certain number of good buffers, one is quite safe from unpleasant contradictions. Buffers are quite mechanical. A buffer is like a wooden thing. It does not adapt, but it plays its part very well. It prevents one seeing contradictions. Question: how are roles created? Answer: roles are not created. They are not conscious. They are adaptations to circumstances. Question: is it difficult to stop playing a role? Answer: It is not a question of stopping. It's a question of not identifying. Question: can some roles be good? Answer: we speak only about consciousness and mechanicalness. If a role is mechanical, we must observe it and not identify with it. The most difficult thing is to act yourself consciously. We start consciously and then we usually identify. Question: you said that one could not change any of one's eyes because man is so well balanced a machine that to upset the balance would be harmful. Answer: yes, but I meant someone trying to change oneself without knowledge, without a plan or a system. But if you work on a plan, such as this system, it is different. That is why you are advised to do certain things which cannot produce any harmful effects. This system is the result of experience. Besides, in actual stopping of expression of unpleasant emotions or stopping imagination and things of this kind, very little can be done at first. It is more for self-observation. You think that if you decide to do a thing, you can really achieve it, but it is not so. Things go on automatically, mechanically, and you do not notice it. But if you start to oppose them, you begin to notice them. So, it's more for observation than for any results. It's not easy to get results. Question: if you are trying to stop imagination, mustn't you have some point on which to fix your mind? Answer: we always have enough points on which to fix our mind. The question is, can we fix it? We have the power of observation, but we cannot keep our mind on what we want to. The situation is like this. We teach this self-study from different sides. If we do a little at one point and a little at another point and a little at a third point, together they will produce some effect and make it easier to do something on the fourth point. We cannot do first one thing and then another. We have to start from all sides. As to struggle with imagination, it is suggested just as a struggle. It does not mean that we can stop it. Much more energy than we possess is needed to stop imagination. We can only attempt to stop it. We can do nothing. We can only try. We can only begin something. And if we begin many things at once, we will get some results. With this system, it's possible to start from many sides, and then results will appear. And I'm going to pause here because this is a very long chapter. So I hope you're enjoying this. Till soon.